Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about play area ground cover, and we'd like to thank Bobby Tom for leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Some of the first evidence of swings show up in pottery in Greece around 500 BC, and I was trying to find the history of slides, of ancient slides. I didn't find any. The first playgrounds in the U.S. were in Boston in the late 1800s, and in the early 1900s, playgrounds had steel tubes, the push merry-go-rounds, they had these giant strides. So this was a big metal pole, and the cap would spin, and that cap held multiple chain handles and chain rope ladders, and kids would jump on this and spin around.
Unsafe.
The Consumer Product Safety Commission doesn't approve of those anymore. When you're picking a location for a play set or play area, you want to look for potential hazards before you set it up. You want plenty of room for kids to jump off the equipment and have a soft landing. And most pros are suggesting at least 6 feet from any stationary parts of the equipment. And then around swings, they're suggesting leaving more room because kids love to swing and then jump off it. You want to try to shade the area if possible with trees or buildings to keep the surfaces cooler and to prevent burns. So I found a couple companies that have sunshade sails, or some companies call them sun sails. And it's a big piece of material that blocks UVA and UVB rays, but allows air to flow through it.
So what, it's like an umbrella?
Right. It's like a big flat umbrella. Some of them are square, some of them are triangular in shape.
So like a tarp?
A tarp, like a material tarp that allows light to go through and air to pass through, but it blocks the UV. So your kids don't get... So
like a gazebo or like a tent? Or what?
No, it's a big piece of material that you hang up and you block the sun. So you figure out where the sun is generally when your kids are playing, and you set
so
this...
So you look up into the sky?
Right, yes. And you use your shadow to tell. And this is going to block 90% of the UV rays. It's going to keep the equipment cooler. Okay. And they have kits where they have turnbuckles, eye hooks, snap hooks. They have poles. You can use ropes through grommets on this. So it's just a really nice way. They're big, like 16 foot by 16 feet or 12 by 12, and it just shades the area where your kids are playing.
Okay, do you have some companies you'd like to mention?
So some of the top rated: Shelter Logic, Easy Gardener, and Coolaroo. We've talked about them with...
umbrellas? Yes,
with umbrellas. And so Coolaroo makes their sunshades out of their Coolaroo material. So they're extreme weather, they're UV blocking, and it blocks heat. What's interesting is infants have thinner skin and undeveloped melanin, so their skin is going to burn easier than older kids. And sunburns as a kid, or this cumulative exposure, is what's going to increase your chance of skin cancer and cataracts as an adult. So you want to use shade, long sleeve shirts, pants, hats, sunglasses, and sunscreen for your kids. The UVA rays that they're getting from sunlight, this can cause wrinkling and skin cancer in old age, and UVB causes skin cancer, and also that's what causes cataracts.
Interesting.
Yeah, really weird. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention says that any tan or sunburn is damaged skin, and to be careful because clouds don't protect you from UV. The American Academy of Dermatology says 1 in 5 people right now will develop skin cancer, so it's very important that you're protecting your skin. When you're thinking about the placement of a play area, it's nice if it's visible from windows, or if you create an area like with a patio so that you can have chairs and tables so that you can sit and watch your kids while they're playing.
Right.
The Consumer Product Safety Commission has a public playground safety handbook, and they say that the most common causes of deaths in play areas are ropes, leashes, clothing, and impact from equipment tipping over. In that handbook, they have some new recommendations of dangerous equipment that you should not have around your house. No trampolines, swinging gates, giant strides, climbing ropes. They need to be secured on both ends. Metal swings in large animal shapes. They found there's been a lot of accidents with those. Kids slide off them. Any of the swings that are wide enough for multiple kids, I guess there's a lot of accidents with those, and then any of the rope swings. You don't want any areas that could allow a kid's head to get caught between sections of the equipment. So like on railings, you want to make sure that it's much more narrow than a child's head. And then you have to be careful with anything in a picket fence style. So they found that some of the older equipment, that angled area, if kids trip and fall and get their necks wedged there, there's been cases of strangulation. So you have to be conscious of those types of things.
Well, aren't you just all sunshine and rainbows today, JC?
You never want to wear drawstrings on jackets or shirts. That way you're going to prevent strangulation. And don't connect dog leashes or chains to equipment. It's amazing. There's been a lot of cases of strangulation because you have animal leashes connected to playground equipment.
Huh.
Avoid moving parts that could crush fingers or body parts, bolts or rods that could catch or tangle clothes, hooks or any connection with an open section that could catch material or your body. So like an open hook, like an S hook. An alternative to play sets with swings, so rather than these big climbing areas and raised platforms, is a ground level.
Apparently are death traps.
Yeah, it is a ground level play area, so a lot less problems. So if you're planning on an area for your kids as they get older, you can lay the area out, create a border and a path to it. You can, put the ground cover material in there, but just start with sandboxes and playhouses. There's outdoor play mats with like little towns drawn on it. So there's a couple of companies, Step 2 and Little Tykes. They both have very durable plastic playhouses. So there's doors and windows that open, and they have all types of equipment that you can buy for it. So that's nice. There's a company called True Days. It's Truedays, and they have outdoor play tents and tunnels. So that way you can have a play area and they have something to play in, but you're not worried about them falling off or getting caught on this bigger equipment if they're young. If you're thinking about building a sandbox for the play area, there's a lot of plans online. A lot of the pros prefer cedar timbers or redwood. That way you don't have to use any chemicals to treat it. And then add corner braces on the top to help secure the frame. That's also going to give you seats. And rather than putting a bottom on this, just use a 10-year landscape fabric for any drainage. If you're measuring the sand needed for this, usually you're going to have to measure it in cubic feet.
Right.
So you're going to measure your length, and you're going to multiply it by your width, and then you're going to multiply it by the depth. If you have cats in the area, you can get a quality tarp to cover the sandbox or use plywood. And then a lot of the pros were suggesting artificial grass now. It makes a real nice alternative to natural grass or landscape materials. So it gives you a nice level surface for the kids to play on. It drains well. You got the look of grass for your area. And then it's easy to maintain. You just have to use a leaf blower or a garden hose on it. Yeah. And then kids aren't tracking in dirt and sand and mulch into the house.
Because are we going to actually talk about ground cover for our play area?
Sure.
Because up until this point we haven't.
So, for play areas with the potential for a fall, the Consumer Product Safety Commission recommends either using pea gravel, sand, wood mulch, wood chips, shredded rubber mulch, or engineered wood fiber as your ground cover. And they say there's about 200,000 kids a year that get injuries on playground equipment, and over 40% of it's from falls. With pea gravel, there's no sharp edges. They're usually 1/8 to 3/8 of an inch big, and this is going to move and slide to absorb shock from a fall. And
Nothing like falling on rocks.
Yeah, it seems weird, doesn't it, to have stone? But the more I read about it, it's actually pretty interesting how it just gives away when somebody falls on it. So most pros are suggesting about 12 inches deep for a 5-foot fall. The minimum recommended depth is 9 inches. And this is nice because if you have landscape material around your house, you can blend this in with it. It looks natural. Animals don't seek it out. The drawback with pea gravel is dirt and clay can work up through it, making it hard-packed. Kids can throw it. Objects can get hidden in it. And then there's a lot of problems with kids getting this in their ears and nose. And then if this gets out into your lawn, it could be thrown into windows or thrown at people if you're mowing your lawn.
Right. You definitely need to have a border or edging with this.
Yes. With play sand, you want about 12 inches deep. 9 inches is the minimum for a 4-foot fall, and some pros are suggesting 20 inches deep for extra cushioning.
That's a lot of sand.
Some of the drawbacks, sand can get into your clothing and shoes. Kids can throw it, getting into their eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Dogs and cats, they find it inviting. And then wet sand isn't going to absorb shock as well as dry sand, and it can compact over time and start blending into the soil, so you constantly have to add to this.
Right.
One of the controversies of sand is crystalline silica. So sand is made of a variety of different materials depending on your location. In fact, you can have white sand, black sand, green, or pink,
Wow.
which is weird. So the most common rock that breaks down to form sand is quartz, and that's made up of silica. So silica is non-toxic, but silica dust can cause cancer, and it was classified as a carcinogen in 1997 by the World Health Organization. And some of the health advocates, they're warning that this manufactured sand, when these companies take quartz and grind it down into a sand, it's ground so fine that there's this thin dust on the bottom of the bag and on top of the particles that when kids are playing with it, it gets into the air, you breathe it in, and it can cause cancer in later life.
Why do people let their kids outside?
Yeah. When you're shopping for sand, you want to make sure it's marked place sand and washed. That way it's going to be cleaned of debris, possible bacteria, and dust. Companies like Sakrete, Sakrete, they have natural place sand, which is mined from the ground, and then they wash it to remove any dust and debris. There's a company called Safe Sand. So this is made out of feldspar rather than quartz, so there's no silica dust, which is interesting. And then Sandtastic, so it's Sandtastik. Their place sand has no quartz in it, no asbestos. This is also made of feldspar. Did you know that therapists now use sand play therapy? So they give you a tray of sand, and they want you to create drawings with your fingers in the sand, build little shapes. They'll also give you objects to play in the sand, and they say that it helps reduce stress and allows you to work through your problems. Another ground cover is wood mulch, and they're recommending 12 inches deep, 9 inches minimum for a 7-foot fall, and you want to keep this raked and fluffed up, and you're going to need to add more every season because it slowly breaks down.
Right.
Some of the drawbacks, it gets into clothing, kids like to throw it. Some areas of the country, it can attract bugs like termites and roaches. When you're looking for wood mulch for a play area, you want something that's free of toxins or chemicals, and you don't want dyes in it. Wood chips are going to absorb more impact than mulch, so a minimum of 9 inches of chips are going to protect from a 10-foot fall, where 9 inches of mulch only a 7-foot fall.
What do you mean chips? Wood chips?
So wood chips, they're using the inside of the tree, not the bark, for most of them, and so that it's...
So these are like the nuggets?
Yeah, nuggets or, thicker pieces. It's not shredded.
Okay.
So mulch, almost all mulch, they're using the bark of the tree rather than the inside of the tree. And most of the pros are saying use about 12 inches of either one of these for the best safety. And you're going to need to add this also every few years because it's slowly going to break down. And the wood mulch and the chips are nice because it blends well with landscape mulch if you have it in borders around your house. You can also add rubber wear mats under the swings or slides to keep the mulch from getting kicked away when kids are dragging their feet or if there's heavy traffic in one area, and those wear mats are going to add more cushioning. Engineered wood fiber, sometimes you're going to see in the bag EWF, and this is rated for a 12-foot fall if it's 12 inches deep. And this is manufactured from hardwoods and softwoods, and they're using the inside of the tree, not the bark. And they grind this up so it gets a spongy consistency. It's in random lengths. Usually,
so does this look like mulch?
Looks like, well, it looks like the wood chips, kind of.
Okay.
So, again, nice for landscape areas. It's going to be much springier than wood mulch or wood chips, though, and most engineered wood fiber is made specifically for playground areas. There's no twigs or leaves in it or potentially sharp edges. And what you're looking for is a bag that says it complies with IPEMA, and that's the International Play Equipment Manufacturers Association, and ASTM F1292 impact absorption. And this playground EWF isn't chemically treated. It's slowly going to decompose, so you're going to need to rake it and kind of fluff it up, and then every season or two add more. Shredded rubber mulch 6 inches deep will protect against a 10-foot fall, but most pros are suggesting 12 inches or more for the best protection. And there's some controversy with the rubber mulch. The EPA has been encouraging recycling tires to get them out of the landfill because the tires, 75% of them is just a void, so they take up large amounts of space in the landfill and they don't degrade. So one of the uses for these recycled tires is playground mulch, so very effective against a fall, but there's a lot of critics. They're concerned about how safe it is for kids.
Okay.
When the Playground Safety Handbook did their tire mulch tests in 2009, They were just testing for lead levels and not any other chemicals. The Recycled Rubber Council says that their studies show no concern for rubber mulch in play areas. But according to the EPA, one of their studies, in rubber tires they found benzene, mercury, styrene, arsenic, heavy metals, and carcinogens.
So I'd be kind of concerned.
And then when you heat tires, they release VOCs. So the EPA and the Consumer Product Safety Commission both recommend rubber mulch because it's one of the best for protection against a fall, but they're saying that really more research needs to be done to determine if there's any long-term health risks. When I was looking at a couple of these studies, I came across Dr. Philip Landrigan. And so he has concerns with rubber mulch for play areas and kids. And he did this research in the 1970s on these kids that were exposed to lead near a smelting company in Texas.
Okay.
So the children were getting levels too low to cause any problems or symptoms in adults, but he found out that kids, this level was enough to cause brain damage.
Wow.
And so his study led to the EPA removing lead in gasoline and paint, and it reduced lead poisoning in kids by 95%.
Wow.
So he's saying the current research in rubber mulch is inadequate. The substances in tires should definitely be a concern because children's cells and organs are rapidly growing and developing, and they can easily be disrupted by certain chemicals.
So who knew that pea gravel was your best option?
Stone. Much safer with stone than your kids. So to create your 12 inches or more depth of ground cover, you want to dig down and use a heavy-duty landscape material rated at 10 years or more under it. Use a border control to keep your ground cover in place, and then call 811 a few days or a week or so before you dig, and you're going to have probably 7 or 8 different utilities come out. They're going to mark any buried utility lines, pipes, or cables, and you want to stay about 24 inches away from any of the marked lines. So when you're putting down your equipment or you're placing your borders, if you're in an area where there's ever going to be a problem with those utilities, they're going to make you remove it.
Oh.
So you want to, in fact, it might be better to call 811 first before you even start planning any of this. That way you can kind of have your design based on, where this is. Because what a drag if you had to move everything.
Yes. Do you have anything else to add?
I would say when you're comparing ground cover to take a look at that Playground EWF. It's becoming a lot more popular because of its shock-absorbing qualities. 12 inches deep is going to protect against a 12-foot fall. There's no chemicals. It looks good with other landscape material. And then my new advice is call 811 before you plan.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, the Spotify mobile app, the Google Play Music app, and iHeartRadio.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our books, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.
Thank you.